Penn State comes crashing down to earth and leaves a massive crater that's wide and deep in its wake. Once again, Tim Aiden, Marty Leap from BlackShoeDiaries.com. Marty, first of all, you're alive. You have a pulse, from what I can tell.
Barely.
Yeah, just like Penn State seems to barely be a functional football team after that absolute beatdown they suffered. Yes, welcome to all the Michigan fans that are gleefully watching this. Well, I see all your hail and go Blues. So yes, enjoy the win. 40, I guess just to start, I guess they got the obvious big stat that's rolling across the banner down at the bottom. 418 rushing yards given up. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, both go over 150 yards each with a couple touchdowns. And Manny Diaz getting crucified on Twitter and all the message boards. Now, obviously, there is some criticisms that can be made towards Manny, like lack of adjustments. Maybe they should just try stacking the box and force JJ McCarthy to try to beat you with his arm more, which maybe he probably still would have, but it was just insane to see how easily they were able to just pound the rock on this Penn State defense, which going into this game was fifth in the FBS in total rush defense.
Yeah, you come into this game, like you said, Penn State's defense, fifth in the FBS and rushing defense. And a big reason I thought Penn State could win this game was that, to me, what Penn State was going to do well was going to combat Michigan. They were going to look to run the ball a bunch of Blake Corum. They're going to look to run the ball a bunch of Donovan Edwards. And I thought Penn State's rush defense would hold up well. They just didn't. I thought Manny, this was his first real clunker of a game as Penn State's defense coordinator. He sat in that zone, didn't adjust well. When you have cornerbacks like Joey Porter Jr. and Kalen King, put him in man out there and bring guys in the box against a team like Michigan. It was just from the get-go, it was bad. I know you and I talked about this a little before we got on the air, but even early in the third quarter when Penn State led 17-16, it never felt like Penn State was even like in the game because Michigan was just marching up and down the field. This was the first game since Ohio State in 2007 that Penn State did not force a punt. It was brutal, man. It was tough to watch, and to give you a reflection where I was at, the one Blake Corum touchdown he scored, they reviewed it, and I remember telling my television, like, don't even review this. He's going to score anyway. Can we please just get this game over with? Like, I'm ready for this to be over. Spare me. Just end this damn game. Like, it was just from the get-go, Penn State just got their teeth kicked in. I mean, it was 13-0 and could have been so much worse because Michigan had run, 35 plays or whatever it was. Penn State had run 6. If you take away a very fluky pick 6 by Curtis Jacobs, I mean, it was a great play by Chop Robinson, great play by Curtis Jacobs, but fluky in the sense it hit the Michigan player's helmet. You take that away and you take away one big run by Sean Clifford, and Penn State loses this game probably like 48-3. They were just outclassed, outmanned, manhandled from start to finish. I mean, I would argue that this is up there with Temple in 2015. This is up there with Michigan in 2016, Illinois last year. This was one of the worst, most embarrassing losses James Franklin has ever had at Penn State.
I would still argue that 2016 was worse. I mean, when you're having to play the walk-ons, whole group of walk-ons at linebacker because your starters all got injured. I mean, it's hard to get any worse than that. But this was I don't know, maybe I had to expand the list to top 5 or something. This might go up there. Just in the sense of, I mean, paper, talent-wise, these are teams that recruit at a pretty equal level. So it's just to see the Penn State just get thoroughly dominated the way they did. And, and it wasn't like Michigan did anything fancy. They just ran the ball right at them and dared Penn State to stop them, and they couldn't. I mean, that's what really made that so today so baffling, and why it feels like such a rough loss. It's one thing if Penn State just you knew they were, they weren't that good, and you expected this, but it's just I'm essentially kind of at a loss for words at this point, and I was seeing other people point out, for this to be happening in year 9 under James Franklin at this point, it's one thing when this was happening in the first few years as the team was recovering from crippling sanctions, but for this to happen in year 9 when you've recruited well and you got a full roster, it's just really baffling. And I know you said this before we hit record, Marty, but this is one of the biggest weeks of his Penn State coaching career coming up. You got Minnesota coming to town for the Whiteouts, and they also boast a solid running back in Mo Ibrahim. Now, granted, we can get into him in a little bit later, but they did have Tanner Morgan get carted off the field, and we don't know what his availability could be, so that could affect things for next week. But just what else could Penn State have done maybe to try to or can do in practice going forward this week to keep Mo Ibrahim in check, or at least not allow them to run wild the way Michigan's guys did?
Yeah, you better figure something out. This is James Franklin's 9th season as Penn State's head coach. Those first 8 years, with the exception of 2016 and 2019, they've lost back-to-back games at least once during the season in every one of those years. It's what James Franklin teams do. They're bad coming out of a bye. They're 3-7 after a bye. They're bad after their first loss. They're win or lose, which every year one's been a loss. They're bad the week after they play Ohio State. We see the trends, and it's on coaching. I don't want to hear it's year 9. It's year 9. It is.
Yeah.
It is year 9. Like at this point, you have your players. You've been recruiting extremely talented classes. There's no more excuses. There's no more we need to develop better. There's no more we need this. It's year 9, James. There's no more excuses at this point. I think right now a lot of this fan base is on edge, and for good reason, because we've seen what has happened in the last 2 years. I said this on Twitter. Without Trace McSorley as his starting quarterback, James Franklin is 40-25 at Penn State. That's not good. That's not good for Penn State. That's not good enough for Penn State. This is a big week. You've got to get it figured out. Penn State is a much better team than Minnesota. There's no doubt about that. They're much more talented. There's no reason Penn State should lose to Minnesota, especially at home, especially in a whiteout, and especially when Minnesota likely will not have their starting quarterback. You've got to figure it out with this defense. You've got to be able to stop the run, because God forbid they come out next Saturday night and they lose this game. Yeah. After what happened last year, it's just the parallels are there, man. 5-0 with a road win against the Big Ten team to start the year, a week 3 win against Auburn, and then week 6, you go on the road against a top 5 Big Ten opponent and you lose. This is 2 years in a row this has happened. Last year, after that loss against Iowa, and again, different for a lot of reasons, but you completely imploded. You can't let that happen this year. It's a complex situation too. Like, I realize this team had so many more issues than just this today, but man, Sean Clifford was horrible. He was terrible. There was multiple times he would take the snap and immediately bail out, roll to his right, destroy his own pocket that was fine, and derail a play. There was a play in third quarter when they were down 24-17 and at about their own 40-yard line, he had Mitchell Tinsley wide open for at least 12, 13 yards, maybe more, and just completely botched the throw, and that derailed the drive. Like, that stuff can't happen. You're a 6th-year quarterback, 4th year as a starter. It can't happen, and if it's going to happen, you can't be playing. So, he left this game apparently with an injury. So it'll be a question all week. See who starts next week against Minnesota. Personally, at this point, I see no reason not to start Drew Alar. Play for the future. You're not going to win the Big Ten this year anyway. But yeah, just this is a big week for James Franklin because every year he's been at Penn State except for 2. His team has lost back-to-back games at least once, and the potential's there. Like, Minnesota's a good team. Even without Tanner Morgan, there's still some good pieces on that. You can't let this happen 2 years in a row. You've got to put a foot down. This is part of this program taking that step. Yeah, you got to put a foot down and beat Minnesota next Saturday because today was unacceptable on so many levels. Like, I predicted Penn State to lose this game. If they would have lost this game 24-20 because in the closing minutes the offense couldn't afford a 4th down, or Michigan put a drive together, went down and scored, I could live with that. They didn't even give themselves a chance to compete today, and just that can't happen. That just cannot happen when you're Penn State. And after this, I'll be done. I'm sorry. I know I'm long-winded here, but it's just James Franklin is now 7-18 against Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. And if you want Penn State to get to where everybody wants them to be, to where Penn State can be, you cannot go 7-18 against Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. You have to be better than that.
Well, in fairness, a couple of those seasons were marred by the sanction years. So, but if you do take out the 14 and 15 seasons, we didn't have a full allotment of scholarships. Still, that's what, 7 and 11.
Still 7 and 12.
Well, not 7 or 7 and 12. Sorry,
yeah.
7 and 12.
Yeah, still not good enough. It's just
still not good enough.
It's just not good enough.
And yeah, it's just I see some other. I'll push back a little bit on Cliff. He did have that nice run to set up a touchdown after Penn State got down 13-zip. Katron Allen punched it in to give Penn State fans a little hope, and then they, I guess you'd call it fluky because it did bounce off Michigan player's head, but Chop Robinson deflects a pass, goes off a Michigan player's head. Curtis Jacobs has the awareness to grab it midair, runs it back for a pick 6. Penn State goes up 14-13 at the extra points. And they're up by a point despite at this point having 1 first down for the game. And, Michigan just totally dominating time and possession. I think I saw the stat. It was first half, it was something like Penn State had the ball for 6 minutes total. But, there was a brief moment where you're thinking, all right, well, now if the defense actually steps up a little bit, can maybe get Michigan off the field, forcing the punt a couple times, maybe, just maybe, this can be a 4-quarter game. But obviously that didn't happen. So yeah, but I mean, Cliff, he didn't have a good game, but he's a little further down on the list of people I would blame for today's loss. Obviously the run game just, outside of Katron Allen's touchdown, it was non-existent. And Nick Singleton I think we had a comment here, from Mark saying Nick Singleton was dead weight. Maybe a little harsh, but he just, him and Katron Allen just weren't able to bust off any huge plays. While, Corum and Edwards, meanwhile, are busting off, 60-plus yard touchdown runs. Do you just think for Nick Singleton, is it O-line helping him? Is it just he just needs to learn to work with what he has, or is it just mental for him at this point?
But I think it was a little bit of both because there was that drop after. I mean, this is in the 4th quarter. At this point, the game was like 34-17. It was over. He ran a seam route with Drew Alar, quarterback. It was a nice throw by Drew, put it right in the breadbasket, and Singleton dropped it. There were some runs early in the game. It was Penn State's first possession. They're down 3-0. You had a 3rd and 1. You try to go Singleton off tackle, and Sal Wormley just got put on skates and almost got backed into Singleton. And I think early on the offensive line struggled, which rattled him some. But yeah, it just I don't know, man. It was he needed to be better today. I think right now the main thing plaguing Nick Singleton is that need to kick that high school mentality of I get the corner, I run everybody, I score. Excuse me, because in colleges that's not going to work because these college defenses are fast. Comparing Blake Corum, I mean, Corum's on a level of his own, man. That kid's so damn good. Shout out to him. I know this is something I've talked about on the show before, but I'm good friends with an aunt and uncle of his. Actually, their son, so his cousin slept at my house last night with my oldest son. Great family, so it's nice to see Corum do well. Maybe I jinxed it. I was talking some mad trash with his cousin this morning before he went home about the football game today. But yeah, no, I don't know, man. I think Singleton's biggest problem is he's got to kick that high school mentality of get that corner and run past everybody because that's going to work in high school. That's going to work against Ohio. That's going to work in Central Michigan. That's not going to work in the Big Ten. So I think today was a bit of a combination between Corum not playing great and the offensive line just having by far and away their worst game of the season.
No doubt. And I guess also, we was talking about Manny Diaz getting ripped apart. Same is happening with Mike Yurcich. And of course, again, deservedly so. But I don't know. I guess I'm not fully on the fire Yurcich bandwagon or anywhere close to it. I mean, today's game, though, did plant some seeds of doubt in my head. I mean, you had 2 weeks to get ready for this, and this is what you trot out there.
I mean, no, I don't disagree with you. One thing I would say with Mike Yurcich, until he's given an extended period of time to work with Drew Lars as quarterback, I'm not going to completely give up on him.
That is where that's where I'm not ready to completely give up on yours. I want to see
part of it too. And part of it too with me, Yurcich is his track record's really good. Look at even if you want to take what he did before he got to Penn State and put that aside. Look what he did last year before Sean Clifford got hurt. Look what Penn State's offense did, this year through the first 5 games, and you can kind of throw the Northwestern game out the window because of the rain and everything, but Yurcich he's a good offensive coordinator. He knows what he's doing. And Sean Clifford, again, not trying to, I swear, I'm not trying to crap all over the kid. I'm really not. But he limits his offense. And I feel like even today, when you saw Lara come into the game, now, albeit, you're losing by 3 scores, but it seemed like they opened the offense up more once Drew Lara came in. So, and it's not even just that. It's not even the talent discrepancy between the two. It's the fact that Drew Lara is a kid that Mike Yurcich recruited and Sean Clifford isn't. Mike Yurcich recruited Drew Lara to play in his offense. So until we get at least one full season of Drew Lara at the helm under our belts, I'm not going to give up on Mike Yurcich at all, especially with Mike Yurcich's track record.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Speaking of Drew Lara, of course, as mentioned, he got in the game, went 5 for 10, 37 yards. Nothing really to write home about. Obviously, didn't help lead that amazing comeback, but at least you saw some glimpses of why he was such a high regarded kid. Now we'll see what happens this coming week. Apparently Sean Clifford had a shoulder issue, and that's what Franklin says is the reason why he put Aller in the game in the fourth quarter. But I guess it's something to keep. If Cliff's shoulder is really becoming a problem, and I'll say this is something I was thinking to myself. I even said that to people. I might have said it on the show even earlier in the season, but that Drew Aller would be the starter by year's end because Cliff just cannot stay healthy. He has a tendency to get banged up over the course of a season, and again, the shoulder is something to monitor because if it doesn't get well enough, maybe there's a chance Drew Aller makes his first career start under the whiteout lights, no less, against a Minnesota team who, well, maybe they'll be starting their backup too out of necessity because Tanner Morgan apparently left his game against Minnesota with an injury, got carted off the field. Marty, what do you see? What are the chances you put at Drew Aller potentially starting next week? And how do you think that would go for him? I mean, there's a part of me that's getting visions of Matt McGloin in 2010 against Michigan during that whiteout. It was his first career start. And I remember on college game day that morning, I mean, everyone was picking Michigan and doubting Penn State with McGloin at quarterback, and he went out and just lit them up.
Yeah, I will tell you this: if Drew Alar starts on Saturday, it makes me a lot more excited for the game just to see what he can do more than anything else. I mean, at this point, in my opinion, Drew Alar is a better quarterback than Sean Clifford. Drew Alar gives him a better chance to win than Sean Clifford does. But even that aside, just to see Alar play, the excitement of that alone, just give me it, man. I think Alar is the quarterback Penn State's been lacking under James Franklin. Alar is the quarterback who has a talent to take the next step with this program. I really believe that. Um, if they're if he starts Saturday, I think on top of increasing their odds to win, again, it's just I want to see the excitement. Give me something to root for. I think Alar is the future. I think Alar can take this program to the next level where they haven't been. So seeing him make his first career start in a whiteout would be cool. Like you said, you mentioned the Matt McGloin thing. Obviously, you hope, and this is not a knock on Matt McGloin at all, but obviously you hope Drew Alar has a lot more natural talent than Matt McGloin. But yeah, it would be cool to see him get that first career start in a whiteout against Minnesota and just see what he could do.
Yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. We'll get back to Minnesota in just a little bit. We've done enough crapping on the offense for now. Back to crapping on the defensive bits. The concerns that we had preseason and in looking at the first 5 games, they pretty much got exposed. We knew linebacker was going to be a weak spot. We knew teams that had a capable running game would be able to run on them. Maybe not like this badly, but still, you knew it was going to come back. You had a feeling it would come back to bite them at some point, and that's precisely what happened. And frankly, I don't know. Obviously we knew how dire the linebacker situation was, but I guess maybe some potential fixes would be to, maybe start Abdul Carter and Kobe King in place of a couple of other guys on the linebacking core.
Yeah, to me at this point, you absolutely have to find a way to get Abdul Carter and Curtis Jacobs on the field together. They're your two best linebackers, and by a good bit. You got to find a way. You mentioned Kobe King. If you're not comfortable throwing Abdul Carter in there at the mic, you got to go to Kobe King. Again, not to try and knock on Tyler Elsdon or anything, but man, he's so slow. His feet look like they're stuck in concrete. I'm not trying to sound like whatever way, but he looks like that slow, stereotypical linebacker that dominates football in Schuylkill County because no one else in Schuylkill County is any good. And that's where we're at. There was a reason why before he camped at Penn State in high school, his best offer was probably West Virginia. Again, not to crap on the kid, but he ain't it. He's not a starting Mike linebacker for a legitimate Big Ten championship quality team. So yeah, if you don't want to play Abdul Carter there, which I can kind of understand to an extent with the freshman, I'm not trying to throw too much at him mentally. You got to go Kobe King, I feel. Yeah, I don't know, just linebacker. When you're seeing Tyler Elsdon and nothing against Dom DeLuca, it's a great story because he's a walk-on for a reason. When you're seeing Elsdon and Dom DeLuca getting as many reps as they are, along with Jonathan Sutherland, that's a recipe for disaster, and something has to be done.
Right, and the D line too. Just disappointing overall. They didn't quite get the pass rush they had gotten in prior games. Maybe Michigan. Do you think just that Michigan's O line is just that good, or do you think this is an off day for the D line?
I mean, nothing against Michigan's offensive line, but I don't think they're that good. I think they're good, but not plow their way to 400 yards rushing against Penn State good. I thought the defensive line played terrible. Chop Robinson, I thought flashed at times. Outside of that, I could not tell you one player on this defensive line that I thought played even okay today. Yeah, I thought the defensive effort as a whole was just atrocious. Um, you know, from the get go, it was now the first play of the game that unnecessary roughness penalty on Joey Porter Jr. I thought was a garbage call. You see that play 10 times a week and it's never penalized. But I thought the defense as a whole, especially in the front seven, played terribly. I think the linebackers were finally exposed for what they are outside of Curtis Jacobs and Abdul Carter. And I thought the defensive line surprisingly played a terrible game. But yeah, this is a front seven that has a lot of questions to answer and a lot of cleaning up to do before they welcome Mo Ibrahim in Minnesota town next week, and that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I guess nice little segue into Minnesota. They got I'm just pulling up a score real quick, but they got beat by Illinois earlier today on the road. Final was 26-14. Now, part of that's due to Tanner Morgan getting injured during the game, although he wasn't having the best game to begin with. He was 4 for 12, 21 yards and an interception before he got knocked out of the game. Ethan Kalikmanis, how do you say his name, didn't fare much better, 2 for 6 for 17 yards and threw a couple picks. Apparently he's JUCO transfer from my understanding. I'm sure if there's any Minnesota fans watching this, you feel free to chime in and correct us. But, Mo Ibrahim was a lone bright spot, 15 carries, 127 yards, and a touchdown. But I would think, if you're going to beat this Penn State team, I mean, obviously, what Michigan did aside, you're going to have to do more than just pound with Mo Ibrahim 30 times and hope for the best. They're going to have to be able to throw the ball a bit too. And if Tanner Morgan's either unavailable or if he's hurt to the point where he's ineffective, there could be some big problems for them in the pass game. This would be a golden opportunity for Manny Diaz to get this defense back on track. Stack the box, force Morgan or his backup, whoever's lining up back there to try to beat you with their arms. Because their passing attack doesn't exactly scare me, especially now that they've already lost Chris Ottman-Bell for the season, who was their lone stud receiver.
Yeah, you look at the Minnesota game. Again, it's a team Penn State's more talented than without a doubt. You've got to stop Mo Ibrahim. You've got to stop their rushing attack. You do that, I think you're going to be okay. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be a wild crowd. It's a game, in my opinion, it's a must-win game for Penn State. Maybe not necessarily for the trajectory of the season and trying to win the Big Ten or anything like that, but you cannot, if you lose at home to a Minnesota team that has its backup quarterback, that could happen this week.
They got much bigger problems on him.
Yeah, you might be on the show alone next Saturday night because I might be.
I'll be at the game. You're going to have a substitute.
Yeah. Well, we might not have a show then because I might be in the corner rocking back and forth with my wife trying to console me. Yeah, no, it's you got to win. You got to find a way against Minnesota, and if you don't, just who boy.
Well, they had good news, Marty. They serve these things now in Beaver Stadium. So
they do. You got your Yingling, you got some Mick Ultra, you got Coors Light, you got some options. Blue Moon, you've got your options now. So if things start going sideways, at least you got some options to help get you through the night.
Yeah, hopefully that will not be the case. We'll like I said, this is a big, huge week coming ahead for Franklin, and I guess the program as a whole. Like you you win this game at Minnesota, and they should be favored. And I guess we'll see what the line is going to be on. I guess they'll release it tomorrow and see how it moves throughout the week. But you win this game, and let's just assume for a second, they lose to Ohio State. Okay, you're going to November with 6-2, with 4 winnable games in November. So 10-2 is still very much on the table in New Year's Six Bowl. So you beat Minnesota next week, you still have a lot to play for going into November. So, but again, they gotta do a complete 180 in performance compared to today, because this was just absolute garbage, unacceptable performance, and especially in year 9 of the Franklin era. I mean, it's one thing to see these performances the first couple of years when he had one hand tied behind his back to do the sanctions, but at this point, it's his program. They're his recruits. This is his highly paid coaching staff. I mean, he can write a freaking blank check to hire whoever he wants to be his coordinators, position coaches. So, it's on him. It's on the staff. It's on the players. Everyone just has to get their stuff together this week and, be ready to just punch Minnesota in the mouth. Because, it's going to take that kind of a performance, for me to get excited again about this team.
No, I agree. I mean, I feel like at this point, no matter what they do against Minnesota, I mean, obviously I'll be excited about a victory. I won't be excited about the team because you're going to lose to Ohio State. And at that point, you're not going to win the Big Ten. So I don't know. It's frustrating to me that we're in year 9 of this with James Franklin, and it feels like we're kind of progress obviously has been made from when he got here, but I feel like we're kind of stagnant and caught in the quicksand or whatever of where we were in like year 3. Like I feel like from year 1 to year 3, a ridiculous amount of progress was made. From year 3 to year 9, I feel like no progress has been made. And that's where I think it's most frustrating to me is the program is absolutely plateaued and flatlined over the last 6 years, maybe even regressed some. And I think that's what drives me up the wall the most.
Plateau in the sense of just not getting into the playoff, like just kind of being stuck at, 10, 11 wins, 2 losses, but
yeah, if that, there's been
plateauing.
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of years. I mean, you go back, you look what they did in 2016, 2017 with Trace McSorley, Saquon Barkley, Chris Godwin, Deshaun Hamilton, Mike Gesicki, that crew. You lost 4 games in 2018, bounced back to 11-2 in 2019, 4-5 in 2020, 7-6 last year.
Not to interrupt, real quick, but I would say they had the most between 2016 and 19. I would say that's the most successful 4-year stretch the program had since the early to mid 90s.
Oh, without a doubt. I agree that's 100% true, but you look at what they've done since the start of 2018, and they're what? 9-4, 6, 20, 11. I'm sorry for doing the math in my head on the air. 24-11. They're what? 31 coming into the year. I think 30-17 since the start of 2018. 5-0 this year. Lose this game. It's not acceptable. It just really isn't. And maybe that's what James Franklin is. Maybe that's what he is. You don't give him a generational talent, a running back. You don't give him the best quarterback in program history, and maybe that's what he is. But I don't know, man. It's frustrating as hell right now because I feel like in a lot of ways this Penn State program is stuck in a purgatory. And, that's the worst place you can be as a sports team. Either you're trending up and you see the light at the end of the horizon, or you're trending down and change is coming. But I feel like in a lot of ways, Penn State's kind of stuck in purgatory, and that's the worst place you can be.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. But I will say if they beat Minnesota this week and they go on to I mean, at least like a 9-win or hopefully a 10-win season. I mean, it's still a big improvement for over the last couple of years. And just given who you have coming back for 2023, obviously Drew Hour is going to be your starting quarterback. Singleton Allen back, running back, and we'll see. Maybe they grab another portal receiver, or you get a guy who emerges a deep threat. Who knows? But it was so. Like I said, there's still some things to, even if obviously they're not going to win the Big Ten, assuming they lose to Ohio State, but I still see some things to play for. You want to have a good enough record to, give the fans some hope with what they have coming back next year. So again, we'll see. Like I said, it's the biggest week of Franklin's career coming up, at least since maybe when they hosted Minnesota back in 2016. Hopefully it won't be quite as dramatic of a game.
Yeah, hopefully not. I was at that game. Really fun game to be at, but having that game when the program is where they were going into that game, as opposed to where the program is or should be now, two totally different animals.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe Irvin Charles comes out of the blue and it's
I mean, real quick though, not to go off a tangent, but has there ever been a player, not just in the history of Penn State football, but of like sports in general, who was more just did nothing for anybody in their career, but had one singular play that had such a ripple effect as Irv Charles in that touchdown catch against Minnesota? I mean, if Irv Charles does not catch that touchdown against Minnesota, which was an incredible individual effort, James Franklin probably is not Penn State's coach right now. It's crazy to think that a player who, outside of that one play, absolutely nothing and wound up at IUP, had such a just program and
butterfly effect on
term career-changing play. It's truly insanity.
It is. Well, in fairness, though, Tyler Davis had to send the game to overtime to begin with. I mean, and Chris Godwin made an amazing catch on, I think
that is true. That diving
it was like second or third and long, and Trace kind of froze off his back foot, but like Godwin makes a great adjustment to like just catch it on the ground. And that saved the drive. And I think I remember Trace. It was like he just had so much real estate and then smartly decided to just take off and run instead of trying to force a deep ball to somebody. And that helped set up Davis's game time field goal, which then, rest is history. But I think at this point we've kind of said all we could say about today. So let's go to I started a bunch of questions and comments here. Shadyville asks, what adjustments do you think could have been done to stop the Michigan run game? I don't know, get better linebackers. I mean, other than that, I mean, the only thing I didn't like was, I don't know, it didn't seem Manny was really stacking the box much, or didn't do it until it was too late. I would like to see them do that sooner. Still might have failed, but we'll like to at least see him try. So that's the only thing I have to say. And hopefully they do something like that next week against Minnesota. Let's see here. Once Frank was excused being humiliated after having a bye week this year, Michigan, last year, Illinois. I mean, I don't know. Go look at his press conference comments. I'm sure you'll find the.
Don't get me started on his press conference comments. Trust me. You don't need me ranting even about that right now.
We'll skip that part. Let's see. Nathan asks, where was a short pass game today and a tight end play today to get us in 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 5 manageable scenarios to supplement a struggling run game? Good question. It seemed like I noticed they were trying to do there's like some little play action thing they were doing. I don't know if you noticed that, Marty, like they would roll out Cliff. And it seemed like maybe they were trying to look for, he was probably looking for Brenton Strange or Theo Johnson, but maybe they were just covered. But yeah, I didn't see much to the tight ends today. And maybe that's just because execution wasn't good or they were just covered well. Cliff was just being pressured.
Yeah, it was definitely disappointing. I mean, I feel like at this point of the season, Brenton Strange is one of your best offensive weapons. He hasn't played like it, with injury being a big part of that. Theo Johnson, also one of your best offensive weapons. You've got to get the tight ends more involved. Tyler Warren today had a really, really brutal offensive pass interference call. If I remember correctly at the time, it was what I think Penn State was trying 24-17. They were inside Michigan territory. Cliff hit Nick Singleton on third down for a big gain of first down, and it was called back due to an offensive pass interference to Tyler Warren. That said, Warren's still a pretty good tight end. Your tight ends are good, man. You got to use them more, I feel. Yeah, I just want to see more of the tight ends moving forward.
Yeah. Let's move on to John Duncan. Michigan's unstoppable. Go blue. We'll find out in Columbus this year, John. You beat Ohio State in Columbus for the first time since the turn of the century, and maybe I'll start to agree with that sentiment. Antoine Johnson, y'all should be able to beat Minnesota. That shouldn't be a problem. On paper, yes, but knowing the history of this team under Franklin coming off that first loss, definitely no guarantees that'll happen. Now, again, as we talked about earlier, yeah, we're kind of monitoring the situation with Tanner Morgan. Is he going to be healthy next week? Well, I should say, is he going to play next week? I mean, I got to see what kind of injury he had. I haven't read the full details, but if it may be bad enough he may not even play, and it seems like his backup is not so good, and you're putting that backup as your, his first career start in the Penn State whiteout. I mean, that's a lot to ask for even a veteran quarterback, but especially a backup with little experience. Yeah, I think it's safe to say even if Morgan does play next week, it's probably not going to be 100%, and they're going to be leaning a lot on Mo Ibrahim. So that's what we talked about, earlier. Like, just gotta make sure they do a better job of containing the run game and not let him go off like Corman Edwards did today. So, hope you're right, Antoine. I hope it's like a nice beat down under the whiteout lights that feels nice and cathartic after today. We'll see. Let's see. Waggy Ocean again. I smell a 3-game losing streak in proper Franklin tradition. I hope not. I guess it wouldn't shock me though. Just again talking about Franklin's history coming off of that first loss. So, I mean, possibly, but I hope not. Let's see here. Antoine again. I don't think Penn State's necessarily trending down. Sometimes it's hard to get over the hump for certain teams. Yeah, I mean, I do agree to an extent. I think he actually does add on. If the new playoff system coming, Penn State will be okay. I don't know if you'll be able to beat the big guys, but you will be in the playoffs most likely. I mean, yeah, once they go to 12 teams, I would certainly hope that there would be some years where Penn State does get to the playoffs. I mean, because I'm picturing at this point a 12-team playoff, you could probably be like a 2-loss team and get in as an at-large if you're in a conference like the Big Ten. So we'll see. Marty, you got anything to say about that?
I agree. You look whenever the playoff expands, it appears Penn State would be amongst the teams best positioned to benefit from it. I think, if you would have a 12-team playoff already, Penn State would have made the playoff every year from 2016 through 2019. So yeah, they're definitely in position to expand from it. But yeah, they need to. Definitely a lot of things they need to get cleaned up to be able to compete with the big dogs in that playoff.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to make the play. It's another thing if you're going to actually, beat the big dogs. And there's, a lot that's going to need to be revamped in order for that to happen. And heck, I mean, even Michigan, I mean, there's still plenty of work to be done if they want to beat the big dogs and win a national championship. You saw how Georgia just destroyed them last year in the semifinal. If they were to make it again this year, I'm not sure if the result would be any different, but we'll find out. Roger Dodger says going 8-4 is college football purgatory. Ask Texas A&M. Yeah, point taken. I mean, they're kind of. I mean, I guess. Hey, we can. Hey, maybe we can be buddies, A&M fans. We both got head coaches that are being way overpaid for the results they've been getting, and there's no easy way out of it. So, um, let's have a beer together, folks. A&M fans, Aggie fans. Let's see. It's not over. Scott said it's not over. You're still playing for a New Year's bowl game. Yeah, that's true. I just mentioned that earlier. Beat Minnesota next week. 10 wins is very much on the table, and that's what it would take to get to a New Year's Six game. So, like I said, we've been saying it all comes down to next week. Let's see, we got a bunch of comments here. Has to be hard being a Penn State fan. Yeah, I think it's hard being a fan of probably most college football teams, unless you're Bama or Georgia or Ohio State fan. Depends on what your team's goals are. I mean, Michigan fans obviously feeling better, but I'm sure they want to see themselves get over the hump and, actually make it to the national championship game, win a national championship. So that'll be like the next big hump they have to try to hurdle. Whereas, Penn State fans, the hurdle is try to win another Big Ten championship, try to get to the playoffs, especially. So, yeah, it's hard in that sense. It's been hard these last couple of years, especially. Things seem to be in a very good place prior to COVID, and then that happens. 2020 season happens, and then last year obviously got off to a really good start. Then things cratered, and now we're at a crossroads again. Got off to a good start, but came crashing down to earth in a huge way. So now we're stuck in the sense of, oh boy, deja vu. But again, we'll find out a week from today whether it is deja vu or whether this is going to be a improvement over the last couple seasons. So, but yes, it is hard being a Penn State fan sometimes. But I think fans of most college football teams can say the same thing. So it's not unique to Penn Staters. We got to do this one, Marty. Scott Johnson. You guys want a new coach? I mean, I guess that. Well, of course, we'll ignore for a second that Franklin's not going anywhere. He's in the second year? Well, first year of his new extended contract, which has a $72 million buyout if you were to get rid of him this year. So, we want a new coach. Well, it depends on who we're talking about. I'm seeing Matt Rule's name. Sorry, go ahead, Marty.
No, I was going to say it depends who the new coach is.
I mean, I'm seeing Matt Rule's name get bandied about on the internet, and I'm thinking, look, I like and respect Matt Rule. He's a fellow Penn Stater, fellow State College high school alum, but the results are not going to be much different with him in charge. And frankly, my concern is recruiting would be even worse under Rule. Or I'd say not. I mean, just like wouldn't be as good as it is under Franklin. My thing is, you get whoever, if you're going to get a guy to replace Franklin, first of all, he's got to be able to recruit at least as well as Franklin has. I know, Marty, we debated this in the Slack channel, but I mean, pulling top 15 classes every year, it's not something that's guaranteed at Penn State. I mean, you got to be a good enough recruiter to pull that off. So they got to be able to do that at least on top of being a better with game day stuff. It's, I mean, otherwise you're going to be stuck in the same situation as now. Or, and frankly, as much as today it sucked, I mean, it's one game. I mean, things could be a hell of a lot worse. I mean, imagine being a Texas fan the last decade. Imagine being a Tennessee fan over the past like 15 years. I mean, it can definitely be worse. So as frustrating as it is right now, you really also got to be careful. Again, he's not going anywhere for the next few years at least, but and he, and he's given the talent all he's brought in. I want to see how things go with Drew Allar running the show the next 2 or 3 years before we, they actually do make a change. Which at that point his buyout will still be high, but maybe low enough where the current AD Pat Kraft could work those big money donors into doing a buyout or maybe rework the contract to make it easier to buy him out. Kind of like what happened with Scott Frost and what happened in Nebraska, what happened with Harbaugh actually going into last season. I know I'm just kind of blabbing on now, Marty. You go ahead. I'm sure you got some hot takes on this.
No. To me, it depends on who the coach is. Do I think James Franklin is going to take Penn State to the next step and reach college football playoff? No, I don't think he can. I don't think he's capable of that. I think we have enough of a track record now to show that James Franklin is not capable of taking this program to the next level. That said, like, a guy that I have beat the drum for that I like a lot is Luke Fickell. If you could get Luke Fickell, I'm all for it. But ultimately, like you said, none of it matters because his buyout is through the roof. He's not going anywhere. He got a 10-year extension. That doesn't mean he's going to be here for 10 more years. What it does mean is he's not going anywhere right now because of his buyout. Yeah. And to me, that's part of what makes this so frustrating is I feel like this program hit its ceiling with what they can accomplish with James Franklin as the coach. With what they did in 16 through 19, they were not able to break through that ceiling and take the next step. And they've been on a steady decline since then. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of football left to be played this year. Who knows where they finish things? But yeah, I would be lying if I told you I was confident in the future of this program. Maybe not that. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I'd be lying if I told you I felt like this program could take the next step with James Franklin as head coach because I don't think they can. And I don't think they ever will.
I mean, yeah, I guess well, obviously right now the 14 playoff, it's make the playoffs. It's hard to see that happening. Now, if once they go to 12 teams, if he's still the coach, then I think they can at least do that. But anything beyond that, though, I mean, at best, we're talking maybe he wins the first round of the playoffs or opening round, and that's it. Yeah, it's hard for me to. We obviously if we're talking national championship, but yeah, no, not happening. I don't see it happening with Franklin. Although I'm not sure. I mean, we can maybe do a whole nother show on this, but Penn State might have some inherent limitations that may right now just prevent it from winning a national championship.
Yeah, that's also like you said. That's a
coach.
conversation for a whole show of its own. But that's definitely a problem with this program, also.
Yeah. Okay. We still have some questions here, some good ones. Is Trout the guy, referring to Phil Trautwein, offensive line coach? Yours is probably not getting love outside of Penn State. What's Manny going to do? Kind of a loaded question. Well, Marty, I think you look like you're ready to say something about it.
No, I mean, I will say I've been very critical the last 2 years of Phil Trautwein. I think this year the offensive line through the first 5 games took a massive step forward. Even after today, I'm still not going to completely give up on this offensive line. You've played 6 games. 5 of them have been really good. One of them was a complete clunker. Let's see what they can do. Um, and Mike Yurcich, I commented that earlier. I still think Mike Yurcich is a very good offense coordinator. There's probably still an argument to be made for Mike Yurcich being one of the best offense coordinators in college football. But until he gets his quarterback in there, I'm not going to hold anything against him. I'm not going to try and judge Yurcich. I'm not going to try and hold anything against Yurcich until we see what he does with an extended period of Drew Lock quarterback. Now, if that doesn't work out, I will be full steam ahead on the time for change. But yeah, I don't think Mike Yurcich or Phil Troutwine are the problem. As for Manny Diaz, again, one game, the defense was absolutely god awful. I will give you that. But if not for Penn State's defense, this team was probably 4-1, if not 3-2, coming into this game. So I have a hard time giving them too much flack, especially early on. Again, I understand Michigan moved the ball up and down the field early in this game, but Penn State's defense bent but didn't break. This game could have been 21-0 early in the second quarter, but it was 13-0 and allowed Penn State to take a 14-13 lead late in the second quarter as a result. And that's on Manny and the defense. So I still think Manny Diaz is a good coach. Yeah, so I'm not worried about those guys yet. A couple weeks could flow differently, but for right now, I'm not worried about those guys.
That's indeed. And just real quick, I know we've been so caught up in talking about today's debacle, but just want you know, want to follow us on Twitter. There's our Marty and I's Twitter handles, but more importantly, blackshoediaries.com, but BSD tweet, and follow us on there. But that's just .com. We already have our blackshoediaries.com. Again, a little tongue twisted. We've already got our recap or 3 takeaways up there. Marty, you're going to have your Twitter reactions post up.
You're putting the finishing touches on that as we speak, so that should be up on Black Shoe Diaries in the next few minutes. There's obviously when the game's 41-17, there's not a whole lot for the Twitter reaction, but putting the finishing touches on that one right now.
And I'll have the position grades up tomorrow sometime. Kind of like with the maybe it won't be straight up, but kind of the Auburn game. This one will be a little easier to put together because I know they're not going to be good.
Yes,
at all. So,
again, though, with the shameless easy plug here, like I said, I do plan on having something up this week on Black Shoe Diaries about the importance of these next couple weeks of James Franklin, this week in particular, to avoid the collapsing we saw last year. So yeah, be on the lookout for that this week as well.
Yeah. So I also have a turning points post on Monday. I'll just discuss like a point in the game that determined the outcome. So that'll be up as well. But also, if we're less than a month away from basketball season tipping off. Hockey, I believe, is about they just started. They're about to start their regular season. Wrestling is going to be starting up soon. So we got great coverage of all those winter sports happening. So even after football season's done, blackshoes.com be destination for Penn State sports coverage. And also tonight, 11:30 Eastern on the main Voice of College Football channel, Mark Rogers himself will have his call-in show. Maybe get a sad, drunk Marty calling in about today's game. Who knows? Maybe I'll even do it the way today went. Marty, anyway.
No, I was going to say, to circle back real quick, you mentioned basketball coverage. If you are a fellow sicko like Tim and I, who enjoys Penn State basketball, and if you're an extra sicko who enjoys listening to Tim and I highly encourage you to follow our Penn State basketball coverage, because Tim and I spearhead a lot of that, along with Ellie Moretta Feliz, who anyone who's watched the show last year remembers, and a few others. So yeah, we'll have you covered during basketball season. But hey, in all honesty, it should be a pretty exciting basketball season in Happy Valley, I think. We saw, not to get off on a tangent here because we're talking about Penn State football, but we saw the basketball program take some steps forward last year. I think we see some more steps forward this year. And yeah, this is something that we haven't been able to say a whole lot in our life, but it's an exciting time to be a Penn State basketball fan for once. So definitely be sure to check that out.
I gotta say, lots of reasons to be excited for the program under Micah Shrewsbury. It's brought a excellent recruiting class in, actually the highest rated in program history according to 24/7. So, really curious to see how they do, and especially the few guys they brought in from the transfer portal. So it's going to be fun. Can't wait. Obviously, this coming week will be a huge one for James Franklin and really the program as a whole. Beat Minnesota next weekend, and things seem to be back on track for pretty good year. Not spectacular, not great, but pretty good year. But we'll see. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. If you liked what you saw and you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe on our Penn State Voice of College Football channel. I noticed before we started this show, we had 541 subscribers. Let's see if we can get that to 550 by the end of the month. We still got another 16 days to do this. So I have faith in you folks. Once again, for Tim, for Marty, thanks for tuning in. And I will be at the game next weekend, so I will not be co-hosting with Marty, but we'll certainly find a capable co-host that you will all enjoy in my place. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.